and usually they don't say that this is horrible. You know?
Like, nope, try again.
Yeah. It's like, it's really, there's so much of the collaboration is all just in my head. Like, oh God, I gotta make something that's presentable to these two other people. You know?
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to, I mean, because Yeasayer is super great, but I wanted to switch gears about something really quick, just because we're talking about the creative process. Breakline, the musical.
Oh, yeah.
With Maxwell Carden. I love that album.
Amazing.
That was like such a great album. And I'm just kind of curious about, I'm sure that the creative process is very similar where you go and you say, hey, I've tried this but I also know that it was a musical, so I didn't know if like a director was involved or something along those lines of like, how did that kind of come to be? Because I knew that you specifically were working on that outside of Yeasayer.
Yeah, no, that predated Yeasayer. So that was like that was a project that I was working on with my friend Max and his other friend Evan, and we had a band in college that wasn't really going anywhere. But somehow when we started making up these songs about a fictional like coal mining town, all these songs and these great melodies just kind of came out, and then I got together with Chris is an old friend of mine from like first grade on. So, and then I got to so after, finishing up with college, I'd be like, okay, hey, Chris, come over, help me write this song. So he helped me write a song on that. And it was actually working with Chris on that song and realizing how easy it was that made me realize that we need to like work hard on just collaborating on music together.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, you were saying that like Breakline kind of, in a way, formed Yeasayer. Is that how?
Yeah. So I was living in Baltimore. Chris was living in New York. He invited me up to New York to play a show with him, and I think we played 5 songs, and one of them was Red Cave, which he had written with his friend Grady, and then I wrote like a couple verses for that. And another song that was written by Grady, and then the rest of the songs were songs that I had written for Breakline.
Okay.
So that was the first Yeasayer show. Then the next show, I was like, all right, well, we got another show, and I know this guy Ira, he plays bass really well.
That's so cool, man.
And then so he joined. And then eventually, when we started writing new songs, like, Sunrise and 2080, I think.
Yeah.
Final Path. I don't know if you know that Final Path was like a B-side off of that first album.
Gotcha. I haven't heard that one. I'm going to go digging for that as soon as we get off the phone.
Yeah. Final Path. So the next show, we had a few more Yeasayer songs that became Yeasayer songs, but it was still a lot of songs from the musical. But then eventually it was like, this doesn't really make sense for us to be singing about coal mines. Once we kept writing new songs, then we just eventually abandoned them. But after about a year and a half of touring with Yeasayer off of all our symbols, I just wanted to do something else. So, and I knew all these people, all these great singers like Caroline Polachek and Aku from Dragons of Zin. And I knew all these great singers, and I was like, I could finally do this musical idea where I have all these different characters played by these great singers that I know. Yeah,
and I guess that's why I should have known that the process for writing a musical would have taken a little longer. But the album itself came out in 2014, so that's why I thought initially, because like Yeasayer was around in 2006, like that was when you guys kind of started out, to my understanding, and then so I thought it was kind of like, okay, I'm doing Yeasayer, and then now I'm going to go do this like cool little side project. But that's really cool to know that now. I feel like, in a way, I feel like kind of a sleuth. I really just asked the source.
It just took a very long time to get it to be finally released because it was a side project that I wasn't intending on touring off of. So and from like about 2007 until 2013, Yeasayer was just making albums going out on tour, getting in advance to make the next album, make another album, go out on tour. So there was that much time. I would fit in a few, studio days here and there.
Yeah, definitely.
Jeez.
That's super awesome, though.
Gosh.
I love that.
So, like, when you guys were, like, first, kind of getting into it and, like, first forming, was it hard for you guys to, like, find your sound?
At the time, we were really trying to do something that was going against the grain of what we felt like was the popular thing.
Yeah.
Of being these kind of like, the kind of post-Strokes era, like cool rock and roll thing. We were like, oh, let's incorporate some like barbershop choir harmonies, and and like some West African guitars, and then some. We were really into Brian Eno and Tangerine Dream and these kind of, Popol Vuh and all these kind of more long form atmospheric synth soundscape type music, and just kind of throwing them all together and just not having any rules really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Well, I was going to say, and I think that's like super evident because I wrote down, obviously like All Our Symbols, Odd Blood, Fragrant World, Amen and Goodbye, like each of those albums has such a distinct sound, yet still the songs themselves back to back don't sound, I guess, similar. They're all super, super distinct, but there's still kind of like an underlying, I guess you said, soundscape that like unifies them all, which I think is just so cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we never wanted to make the two songs sound exactly the same,
Yeah.
We would always have, okay, here's the reference point for this song. Sunrise, it was like, oh, let's make something that sounds like a Phil Collins song. And
yeah.
And then eventually it turns into something that's got more kind of tribal rhythms or something, and but it was all just coming out of like a MIDI guitar playing chords that sounds like a flute sound or something. Something that in other circumstances people would say this is so cheesy. And I think we like continually run into the critic who's just like, I hate these guys. They're so cheesy. Like, this is not allowed.
It makes me so mad. Obviously I'm such a huge fan, but every time you guys put out an album, I see Pitchfork's review on it, and I'm just like, these guys are just kind of tools. They don't, like, they're just so, like, they're just all about, like, I feel like they call out, like, the nuances of y'all's music in just the way that it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they don't see what you guys are doing. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny, I guess I'm grateful that, when we put out music, it gets covered by Pitchfork and whoever. Like, the tragedy would be you put out an album and nobody reviews it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, did it even come out at all?
I promise you, whatever you guys put out, I'm going to listen to it.
I know. It brought tears to my eye. You're like, I love every single song. I was like, I got all these guys.
Yeah. Again.
No one likes every single song. The closest thing I have for that is like the Beatles. And even that, there's songs that I'm like, oh, this song is fucking annoying.
I don't know. It's so crazy to me because, like, I can sit down with every one of your, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you. I've told Gabe this multiple times so he can back me up. That, like, y'all's music is some that I can just, like, sit down and listen to the whole album, like, start to finish, and just, like, enjoy it in its entirety. And that's, to me, something that's, like, I don't feel like I find that a lot as a music listener, to, like, find an album that I just want to listen to start to finish. And I don't know. Again, I don't just say that because I'm talking to you directly, but I've said it before about you guys, and I think that's why you're so special in just, like, my eyes and, like, the music scene of just, like, everything. It just feeds right into the next song, and it's just so awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Please, go on.
I just have a very similar question to that. There was an interview that I listened to, and I'm pretty sure it was you that said this. But so the quote is, "Each song is very distinct, sometimes to the detriment of the album." And I was just kind of asking, like, how do you navigate the process of, like, making sure that the song is 100% itself and, like, what it's supposed to be, but also, like, keeping the album coherent, you know, if that makes any sense?
Well, I think, you know, it's hard to work on an entire album in, like, one sit. You know, you have to work on these individual songs. And then only towards the end when you're, like, you've laid down the vocals. Okay, that's all. Once you've laid down the vocals, then it's just your song is getting mixed now. And then maybe you sprinkle on a few more things, but really, like, that song is done.
Yeah.
And then you start to sequence the album, and you start to realize, you know, this one song doesn't really fit. And we do cut songs from albums, you know. And sometimes the song, it'll be maybe it's the choice of a band, or maybe it's like a misunderstanding of something that a record label guy said or something.
Okay.
But you know, we've cut songs from albums that end up being very popular songs, you know. But you hope that you cut a song because it doesn't quite fit with the flow of the album, you know. And I think albums can be really varied. I was listening to I still like to play CDs in the car, you know.
Okay.
I was listening to the Cranberries, and I sang like the Cranberries when I was in middle school. I sang like Zombie when I was before my voice changed and everything. And now I'm playing, and now I'm playing it for my kid, and she's just as into that one song, you know. But the whole album, it really sounds like they just kind of set up all the instruments, put mics in front of them, and just kind of hit record, you know, and just played all these songs. There's like a similar tone throughout the whole thing. And we've always been more into like, okay, you know, we never even just set something up. It's like, okay, now Ira's going to play guitar, or I'm going to play this keyboard part, Chris is going to lay down some drums or whatever. So it's always changing. Nothing's ever set. And then you have to figure out elements to tie everything together. Like recently, we just recorded live drums over all of these songs that we've been working on, and it really gives everything this nice little glue that'll make it obvious which songs don't belong and which songs will fit together on an album. Well, you know, and I don't even know if we are putting out, because I think that was what you guys were talking about in the last podcast was you don't know what the timeline is. And I don't know exactly what the timeline is either. But it's like maybe we put out EPs or something where it's a very strong collection of 4 songs that sound like they use the same palette or something, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, in my brain, I just always think about the album. Yeah. That's what I listen to. And some albums are like the Cranberries, where all the songs kind of sound like they made the same palette, and some are much more disparate.
Yeah, well, and I think that's interesting that you talked about, like, songs that necessarily didn't make the cut. And I was going to ask, actually, anyways, about Lone Shark Blues.
Oh, yeah.
That song is, like, so awesome. Just, like, the bells in that song. I love that. It was so cool. And I was like, and I think I read somewhere that it was like, this was like a B-side from Amen and Goodbye, but, like, it didn't sound like a B-side. And I think it's cool that you say that because, like, it doesn't mean that the song is bad if you cut it. It's just kind of talking about the flow of an album and wanting it to sound like on the same palette. But that song is great. And I just think it's cool that you said that about how, you know, some things don't make it based on it not necessarily fitting with the start and finish of an album.
Yeah, well, we never really have put out anything that's like, that hasn't been worked on at all. So that song was worked on probably more than certain songs on Amen and Goodbye. It was just like, you know what, this song's a little negative and it doesn't really fit with the kind of all these religious